worship.
The need to worship appears to be an innate characteristic in human beings. If you will, it appears that we are hardwired to worship. Some people choose to worship God, others celebrity, wealth, fancy cars, knowledge, success, illegal drugs, themselves. The list appears to go on and on and on. And it seems that different groups do a better job of worshiping the object of their worship than other groups do. At one time, worshiping Jesus was something that was done well. This type of worship was honored in society. People strive to live their lives as an act of worship to Jesus. Now, this is not so much the case. Many beautiful stained glass adorned churches are nearly empty on Sunday morning or stand vacant and decaying, run-down, dilapidated eyesores gathering graffiti and victims to acts of violence. Some of these churches are only used for filming movie scenes depicting people worshiping, but no longer function as a place where people worship in any real sense. What happened to our Christian worship? For something that was at one point very important to people. People have given up their lives for the right to worship. And now, take it or leave it. Maybe there's a ball game on TV I'd rather watch. It is just not a priority for many anymore. How did this happen? Does technology have something to do with the downfall in Christian worship? Or could technology be the solution to the malaise that faces many of today's Christians? Can Christian leaders employ technology in worship in a manner that will wake up the masses? Or does technology just get in the way of meaningful worship? But these are merely some of my musings and ponderings from my vantage point sitting in the pews. So, to investigate the state of worship in churches today, I interviewed a few of my friends who lead worship.
I'm here with Mike Waddingham. He's on the worship team at Sunrise Church in Ontario.
With Dan Brown, he's the worship leader at Cardia Methodist Church.
Cardia United Methodist Church in West Los Angeles.
With Lee Cooks, Director of Spiritual Formation at La Crescenta Presbyterian Church.
Lincoln Skinner, he's pastor of Oneonta Church in South Pasadena.
What are some of the greatest advantages you see in incorporating latest technology in worship practices?
Just the ability to make changes on the fly, instant changes, say in different key changes. If the words are spelt wrong or in the wrong place, you can move things around pretty instantaneously.
The biggest is our ability to, for in music, obviously, is to control volumes, to use those volumes in a spiritual way, to not overwhelm, to not underwhelm, but to be able to tailor that for each individual situation.
As far as worship goes, like singing and praising God, it's definitely an advantage if you can share the words to the song more effectively, if the audio instruments and whatnot for the guitar and the speaker and microphones and things like that for the preacher more effectively share the message, then I'm all for it. I think technology is as long as it's done in a way that it's almost supposed to be so good that you don't even notice it's there.
Okay.
If you're so engaged in the message and the technology is doing it right, you're not even going to really even see it. It's almost like a musician. The instrument for the musician is really just an extension of really what's going on inside their heart. And if you know your instrument well enough, it's almost like it's just an extension of who you are. It doesn't seem to encumber you in any way. So I think good technology would be just like that. It's more or less just an extension of expressing the message. So if it's about corporate worship, it's about praising God, you wouldn't be thinking about the screen. You wouldn't be thinking about the slide. You wouldn't be thinking about the guitars. You'd be thinking about God. But all of these things could be used to enhance and inspire you to enter into that place. And if it's done right, it should.
The most flawless sound guy is the guy you don't even know is there. You don't hear any feedback. You don't hear, when it talks into the microphone, it's on. When they're very attentive.
I think if you can engage people on a sort of a variety of platforms, you'll find that they'll probably want to go deeper. And why not? I don't want to hinder anybody.
Have you seen any disadvantages to the use of technology in worship?
Yeah, tons. One is that when you're so tied technologically, if anything goes wrong, the service begins to. You have to be very creative, and something goes wrong all the time. Almost every Sunday, there's some little thing wrong, and so we're constantly having to think on our feet, and it's a blessing and a curse at the same time.
If it's done wrong, then it can be a distraction.
Yeah, if the technology is apparent, if the sound goes out suddenly, or if the projection suddenly has the wrong stuff up there, or if it's used incorrectly, if attention is brought to the technology itself, it loses its strength.
If you don't have somebody using the technology in a way that's skilled, let's say a sound guy, for example, sound equipment's very sensitive. If you don't have somebody who understands how to do sound, you're going to get feedback, it's going to be too loud or too quiet, it's not going to match the room, and so really technology, one of the disadvantages of it is it can be expensive, and if it's not used right, it can be a distraction or a hindrance, and yeah, so it takes a lot of sophistication to be able to use technology in such a way where you don't even notice it's there, but you're receiving all the benefits.
So technology, if it's used wrong, if it's used to push itself, if you've got way too much lighting, or if you've got way too big a set, instead of a worship presentation, you're now doing theater, right? Kind of takes away from the messages being presented.
I'd like to know what the most profoundly impactful technological change you've seen in worship.
Gospel kind of started it, but now we're seeing all kinds of alternative. We're seeing rap, we're seeing hip hop, we're seeing heavy metal, speed metal. We're seeing, I even know some punk guys that have Christian lyrics in their songs. And I think that's one of the big changes that we've seen in the last 40 years is that we're getting away from pipe organs and traditional hymns, and we're moving more towards the music that people hear every day, Christian lyrics.
I think the biggest one is just the video, audio component. We use so much more audio and video resources in our worship services. So from the soundboard to in-ear monitors to everything being digital, so that the volume on stage is low, and so that we can work with our in our sanctuary. I think that's the biggest.
The most profound would be Google. I'd say one of the cool things is, I think traditionally in the past, when a pastor would get up and kind of expound from the Bible and teach, there would be it would be sort of just taken as truth, And nowadays, everybody's got their smartphones on them and stuff like that, and I actually encourage people that when they come across something that's interesting or whatever, to jot a note, but then to be able to check it out. And I see people now doing it in real time.
Do you see any advances in technology coming through in the future?
I think apps are the big thing now, and so you're going to start to see the sharing of information in worship changing away from blogs, and it's going to change away from formal websites and move more towards like an app-based system. So I see certain churches out there like LifeChurch.tv. That's a church that's sort of ahead of the curve in many people's eyes, because they're actually developing apps out there that engage people so that worship isn't just something that you do on Sunday morning. I know that they put out recently put out a children's app for the Bible, and it's really interactive and fun. But I would think that churches who can start to think about how people engage their smartphones and apps would start to enter into something that could help worship. So people are becoming less likely to pay through money or check. So apps, you can swipe your credit card and do your tithe that way. You can download sermons. You can engage people in small group forums and chat rooms and stuff like that. But apps are now opening up a lot more options in worship, outside as well as inside, because they're so easy to download, they're so easy to use, and you don't have to go hunting through stuff. You just pull up the app and it's right there.
The new tech is all wireless, and it's less obtrusive. If you've got a wireless, if you've got a tiny little microphone and a wireless system, you don't even need a microphone stand. And that frees up all of the space on the worship, so you don't have to walk around all the what I call the stands family. There's the guitar stand and the microphone stand and the music stand. So, yeah, we're seeing things becoming smaller. We're seeing things becoming more wireless, more intuitive, simpler to set up. Used to be you would have a big box like this and that long full of EQ systems and compressors and limiters and distributors and power amplifiers and all that stuff. Well, now you just got a big amp built right into the speaker, and you just run a wire from that back to your wirelessly controlled mixer. So it's pretty amazing, the new stuff that's coming along. I don't know what's going to happen next, but right now it's pretty easy to set up and run a very small church with a very small amount of money.
I'm hesitant to even say, because I thought it would be something else than it is now, and so I think we're going to see more web activity, more internet connectivity, social media. I think those. I'm guessing, and it's just a wild guess, but I think that'll be the direction it moves.
It's hard to say. I really don't know, other than with the new touchscreen technology that's come through, they might be able to do something else with that. I really don't know.
I learned a great deal from my friends' perspectives. For starters, the use of new technology in worship is important in that it is a way of meeting the culture where it is at. All technologies have a lifespan. In their particular era, they are quite useful, but if old technology is retained past its time, it causes frustration and problems. For instance, the landline telephone was a tremendous blessing to society in its day by helping people become or stay connected and facilitating growth in commerce. But now the landline telephone has been replaced by cellular technology. Another observation was that technology can get in the way when it is apparent. Technology should enhance our ability to worship and not be a focal point in itself. Take, for instance, this typical worship space. Notice that the large projector screen partially covers the ornate cross and beautiful stained glass window in the chancel. Professional theatrical grade stage lights beam down from the left and the right on the stage, blinding the speaker so that he or she must shield their eyes and squint if they want to take notice of who is sitting in the pews. This setup is screaming intrusiveness. The technology chants, "Here I am the focal point." Another common response was that when technology was used wrongly, it creates a problem. But how is anyone going to learn how to do it right if they do not first take the time to do it wrong? We discussed this area to some extent with regards to this project. Several of us were concerned that we wanted to produce a quality project, but the skills necessary to do so and the place we are currently at are miles apart. I think the answer lies in the time and place one makes their mistakes so that they can learn to do it right. I think this is what we are doing through our seminary experience. Here, we are taking the risk and the time to be wrong so we can polish our skills. Then, when the time comes, we will be able to lead in a manner that is glorifying to God. To rush the process and jump into a role that one has not properly prepared for is not showing proper respect. Quite frankly, this is what is happening at times in Christian worship. At times, people seem to be giving less than their best, exhibiting efforts that would not be acceptable in other vocational practices. Some congregations have even gone so far as to hire paid musicians for their worship, lacking people who will step up from the congregation. In a sense, we are now having outsourcing of worship. I think this practice is more inappropriate than just doing it wrong. It is part of a broader problem of a dearth in discipleship. We don't just need to be discipling in the knowledge of God, but rather there is a whole gamut of areas of life that should be influenced by our Christianity, and there needs to be discipleship in such areas, of which leading and participating in worship is one.
In conclusion, I may have been a little harsh in how I assess the current state of technology in worship in this presentation. Then, on the other hand, maybe I was not harsh enough. The point is, no matter how you look at it, there is plenty of room to grow in our use of technology in worship. Wherever we decide to place our current starting point, because the technology itself is growing at such a fast pace. Amazing things are happening on the technological horizon. At one point in history, Christian endeavors led in the advancement of some technologies. At this time in history, we have a blessed opportunity to strive to be at the front of technology in how we worship.
That's very helpful.
Thanks. I'm here with Mike Waddingham. He's one of the worship team at Sunrise Church in Ontario. Mike, what's the most profound, impactful technology change that you've seen in worship?
Wow. I wish I would knew what the questions were before we did this.
Okay, you want to?
Yeah, what are they?
Okay, stop. That was